All right, so we're going to go ahead and kind of get started. We may have a couple more join us, but again, welcome. I'm Angela Fitzgerald. I'm the Director of Programs with the STEM Connection, and we are so happy that and thankful that you have chosen to spend a little bit of time with us this afternoon, learning a little bit more about computer science education and some of the different ways that we can go about introducing those concepts and those ideas with the youth that we are working with. Today, I am joined by my colleague, Kathy Duda, and Kathy works with us at the STEM Connection as a facilitator and providing program support, but she also works in computer science education at a local elementary school and works with digital literacy, so she can share a little bit more about some of her experiences kind of right in this world of computer science education and what that looks like kind of at some of the different age levels that we are working with. So I'm going to just pop up as we get started here. A quick poll. We just like to know a little bit about our audience that's joining us live. That kind of helps us to know, who's joining us and what your experiences are and kind of what those age levels of kids that you kind of primarily work with. We know that there are a number of people that will be watching this via the recording. So thank you for joining us that way. You probably fall into these categories where you're an educator kind of in a school setting, or maybe you're an administrator or provide support services at a school, or we also have youth workers joining us, or those that work in that more informal or out of school time. We might have some parents and caregivers that are joining us too. So as I'm seeing these polls, some responses popping in, I'm seeing some elementary educators and middle school educators, youth program directors that are joining us today. Looks like most everyone that's with us today, this is their first time engaging in a STEM Connection program. So we may have a couple that have joined us before. And a whole, that third question, what's your level of experience with computer science education? We're kind of across the board. So some at that novice level, that emergent level, practicing and experience. So that's great to see. Some of you that have been doing this for a little while and are kind of in that maybe in practicing or have a little bit more experience. We are always open to you sharing your thoughts and ideas too. There'll be a couple opportunities along the way where we may ask participants to add to the chat something specific, or if at any time you have any questions or other thoughts, feel free to pop those into the chat box or the question and answer section, and we'll be happy to share that or answer those questions that you have. As we continue on, those of you that are not familiar with us, Kathy and I work for the STEM Connection. We are a nonprofit organization located in Indianapolis, and we work to educate and empower children and adults in the principles of science, technology, engineering, and math through engaging hands-on learning experiences. So that's really our mission. And we have this short video that we can share with you to kind of share more about the work that we do. And you can see and get to know our little, our place in space, the farm where we work a little bit better. So,
the STEM Connection is really a place where kids can just come to learn and explore and make connections with the world around them. In our farm space here, we have day camps and we also have field trips. And those run year round and can be flexible depending on what time of year we're in.
This place was the first place I really got to explore nature. Like my backyard when I was growing up, it didn't really have many woods behind it. So I got to come out here and explore all these woods and these big open fields and just see what nature was really about and all the fish and birds and things like that.
Kids are free to be in nature and see what they see and ask questions and learn along the way. And it's just a really great informal learning opportunity for kids to come and be themselves and gain skills and experiences that will help them be successful now and hopefully into the future.
All of the activities that we have here are very hands-on, and it gets their minds working and thinking and seeing how things are actually done versus just reading about it. So I really love that aspect in that everything is hands-on, everything the kids are involved in.
I've had a blast at the STEM Connection. I've made a bunch of memories.
This place has been a blessing for me. And if you want to check us out, you can check us out on our website. You're always welcome. And we'd love for you to come on down.
You guys should check us out online. There's always a space for you. So.
So that just kind of shows our place in space a little bit more. And as you can see, we feel really strongly about connecting kids with nature and being outdoors. And therefore, when we think about computer science as kind of part of STEM, we don't always have, or want to spend a lot of our time necessarily using those computing devices specifically. We do in certain situations, and we pull them out as a tool to use, but it's not our primary focus. So how can we still think about, STEM and connecting with nature and our setting, and still bring in some of those ideas and principles of computer science or maybe coding, given our environment? So that's how we kind of connected with the Unplugged coding activities, is really thinking about, our setting and our place in space, and how we could incorporate computer science even in a setting like ours. Let's see. Oh, there we go. It went a little bit far ahead there. All right. So the other programs that we have kind of in that video, it talked a little bit more about the programs we have on site with day camps and field trips and those sorts of experiences. But we do have a number of other programs like professional development or our STEM Future Leaders program, working with some of our middle school and high school students to STEM family kits, and then STEM Quick Wins as well, which is a digital library of all sorts of different types of STEM activities that are free and accessible to everyone. So we'll talk a little bit more about those, because we do have some unplugged coding activities in our STEM Quick Wins library that we will share with you in a little bit. And then finally, again, just more pictures that tell the story. So no matter kind of your place in space where you are, whether that's a school setting or an out of school time setting, a home, you have children of your own possibly where you might be, and, working with kids in that way. So lots of different places and spaces where really great STEM learning can be happening. So we really just encourage you to think about your own place in space and how some of the ideas that we might present today, you can start to incorporate into the work that you already do. Don't want you to have to, totally reinvent something or create something entirely new, but thinking about where you are currently and how you can just start incorporating a little bit more into what you do. So to get us started thinking in that area of kind of computer science and computers and working with those types of devices, think for a minute about when you started working with computers, kind of what stage in kind of computer history here did you start engaging with computers? Was it more, along when computers looked like A or B or C or D, or a little bit more recently with E? As I'm thinking about this myself, I am what people lovingly refer to as a geriatric millennial, having been born in the early 80s. So I very much remember, I can picture our computer lab at my elementary school, right? This was a time when most people did not have a computer at their house, and the computers very much looked like what we see in A. So those were my very first experiences, were just, my weekly computer class in elementary school. And then eventually along the way, my dad had a computer that he brought home from work. I think it was like an IBM, and we thought it was really cool because the keyboard could like slide up in it, and I don't know, it all kind of zipped up into this bag. I don't know. So it kind of, as things progressed over time, but it's just so interesting to think about, now there's just all these computer devices, like computing devices all around us, like our cell phones and tablets. And my girls at school, even as, first and second graders, they're one-to-one devices. They have, their own iPad at school that they don't use all the time, but it's just so different. So we'd love for you to kind of think about and share, you know, your kind of maybe first memories with computers, or when you started working with computers. What did they look like? More like A, B, C, D, or E? So I just remember being in college when we all had computers, and most of our computers looked like the B computers there, but some of the like graphic design or arts majors got the C computers, and we all thought that was pretty cool. But those are some of the connections that I'm making as I'm kind of thinking about my experience with computers. Kathy, what was your experience kind of with computers? What are you thinking? And you can kind of take it
I'm
away.
chuckling a little bit because I'm gonna date myself even more. So like when I went to college and stuff, they were just coming out with desktop computers. They were getting off the mainframes, the punch cards. So I love sharing this with my middle schoolers, especially that that Microsoft didn't even exist. You know, there was no Google, and they're like, what? It's like, because that's all they've known. So I said, yeah, it was a little more challenging. We had to turn things in still on paper, still with a typewriter. And, you know, we use floppy disk, and they don't even ask your students, do they know what a floppy disk is? And we didn't have apps. We had you had to load in, like if you wanted to download, say, Microsoft Word later on, we had the 9 discs that you had to load and install. One, you had to put in one, wait for it to do 2. And then I talk about dial-up internet. We didn't even have internet. It's like you're either on the phone or you're on the computer, not both. So that was always fun to share. So are we getting any?
Yeah, I just think it's really interesting to think about, you know, how kids kind of think about and connect with computers and computing devices. Definitely more like the E or the D,
Yes.
like on the phone or the tablet. And so, you know, how we think about and approach computer education, and making sure they understand that there's a lot of different ways that computers can look and in the work that they do. So Kathy, and I think from here, you're going to kind of get us going on just a little bit more about what is computer science and how can we think about that a little bit more when we start thinking about that in terms of computer science education. So I'm just going to go ahead and click there and let you.
All right.
More.
So as the site says, computer science, you know, it's basically a study of computers, or when people hear computer science, they think of programming right away, but you could also teach it and let them know it's algorithm processes. And that's just not computers. That's like your everyday things you do in your everyday steps. But computer science also talks about hardware, software, but that hits more like in the middle school, high school. We, in the future, or a couple slides down, we'll talk about hitting elementary and the younger age group, because kids now have technology. They don't know life without technology. So computer science, I think, is different. There's a misconception for people that are older, what they think computer science is to what it is now in the schools. So there is this video, and it has some people on there talking about what they say computer science is.
Drybar is a tool that is made to kind of turn screws, and on its own, it's useless. You have to take it in your hand and kind of turn it to make something happen.
A computer actually learns a set of instructions and actually transform that into a way of showing a movie or playing an audio file or delivering Facebook. And that whole study of how the computer thinks is computer science.
It's code, and so code is a bunch of symbols and letters, but it's really more like a language.
I got here from Puerto Rico and I didn't know English, so I had to spend a lot of time trying to perfect my English. Programmers do the same thing. They learn new languages to do new things. They are inputting this language and these instructions into the computer so the computer can do what they want them to do.
Growing up, I was one of the very few people who had access to a computer around me. And I remember being bored one day and I picked up this book that was near the computer that said basic programming. And they had this really simple getting started, a hello world program that you could write in basic. And I remember writing it and recognizing that, wait, hold on, I just put this thing in and taught this computer how to do that. And it came back out. And I had my brother come in and use it. And he's like, oh man, you made the computer say hello? It's like, yeah, I did. Isn't that cool?
In our everyday lives, you speak language and you use that to communicate and instruct when you're around people. Similarly, a programming language is exactly the same thing. It's just a language that you'd use to talk to the computer.
And think about the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning. Let's say it's an alarm clock. There are instructions that somebody put into that alarm clock to teach it how to tell time, how to respond to you hitting the snooze button. You're walking out the house and you jump in your car and you start it. There are lots of computers in there figuring out how to turn the engine the very first time, how much gas to put in. This set of instructions that people have put into all these little devices you've used throughout your day just made your day that much easier to get through.
You want directions or you're dialing a phone number, you're actually interacting with a computer to solve the problem at hand. That's computer science and programming right there, every day, in your hand.
Programming and computer science is one of the best ways to have impact in the world. There is no other career, no other field where you can touch so many people's lives with just a simple software or a simple app. And it's specifically also important for diverse communities to be involved because of the fact that computers are everywhere, programming is everywhere, and we want an equal representation when we are building programs.
We need people who have a broad range of perspectives to find different solutions.
Creating products for the people, you need to be the people. And if we hope to have products out there that really serve our needs, we need to be involved. Programming, learning computer science, and being part of the creation process of this new wave of innovation.
All right. So what is computer science education? In the elementary age, it's basically about being a digital citizen. So that's teaching kids, because they're so young, the vulnerabilities and how to be safe on technology, because now, especially with COVID, everybody is one-on-one. I mean, I work with preschoolers that have devices. And so we try to bring to their attention in a non-scary way of how to be safe and how to look for signs of what to do if something pops up that shouldn't be popping up. So digital citizen is how to be a good person on the computer in the proper way. We also teach kids how to do Google Meets or Zoom Meets in a safe way. And the, as I say, etiquettes of the right way. And then you go into, they could become a digital, that would be a digital communicator. There's things that they should be doing and not doing on the internet or on a computer. So you want to make sure you're teaching them the art of teaching, like learning computer science, as well as computing and the computational thinking. That's really with the younger ones. It gets them going, so it sets them up to do the programming. I mean, in our elementary, middle school setting, we have a robotics club. So, man, I wish I would have had that when I was a kid. And so there's a lot of things that are being introduced way at a younger age. So we want to set them up for the algorithm, the problem solving. And I think we could go on to the next one. So did you want to take this one, Angela?
Yeah, and I think what is just important, and I think in that video, I love what they said is, we need all kinds of people involved in computer science. It takes representation. And so by starting young, right, we're just giving kids that identity that they know what computer science is, they, are starting to have that vocabulary. They're starting to just build up their skills that will hopefully open the door to future opportunities for them. And we just know that it's so critical, because if you just look at workforce development and knowing and understanding what the needs are going to be for our workforce moving forward, these are the skills that they're going to need to be a part of that global society that we all are a part of. And so to help them, kind of starting young and building up those skills, I think is critical. And we also know that this has been recognized on a national level here in the United States as something that is worthwhile and important for kids to learn, right? As of the last kind of check from last school year, 40 out of 50 states have adopted and started to implement computer science education from kindergarten through 12th grade. So just showing that, the importance of it, and that there's value to spending time, teaching kids computer science and the different parts that go along with it. Because like you said, it kind of break it down and it looks one way with younger kids. And then as they start to move through time, it can look quite different. For those of you here in Indiana, it's part of the STEM strategic plan, or the strategic plan for STEM, is that, with this school year that we're currently in, that all schools will have implemented a computer science education curriculum or learning opportunities for kids in kindergarten through 12th grade. So now, we're having those expectations that, and being held accountable for providing these sorts of experiences for kids. And when we think about it kind of in the unplugged coding sense, and we'll talk about this in a minute too in some more detail, it just kind of helps level that playing field. You don't have to jump right in with the computing devices, the technology itself. You can do a lot of other things along the way to help, meet the needs of, these curricular components that we are all kind of being expected to address. So just a little bit kind of as you're thinking, why is this important? Well, there's a lot of, valid and good reasons to incorporate, the digital literacy and the computer science education into the work that you're doing. And Kathy's going to share a little bit more about some of the ways to kind of get started with that, even with the youngest kids that you might be working with.
Right. And I was going to add on to you too, like, yes, it is. There's even standards now for computer science. And like even at our school, it's like going to be, it's a required, one of the required class, like math and English. And I have read too, like with computer science, it actually helps younger students in reading, in math, and other things, just not in the programming aspects of it. So the slide right here talks about where to start. Computational thinking is like the decommission, taking ideas and taking problems apart. So it's getting kids to start thinking about, and this is not even just like programming, but just anything that they are doing in their daily routine of, okay, where's the problem? It gets them start thinking about where's that problem? And then how can I make it better? Are there some things that I'm repeating that I can make it easier without having to repeat that? Like, kind of like thinking about laundry, taking clothes, if you have an upper floor and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go get my other dirty clothes. I might also take a load of clean clothes instead of making 5 trips. You look for patterns. And then the abstraction of focusing on what's most important. Even at a younger age, we try to think about kids. I'm even guilty of it. You overthink things sometimes. And my older kids, and like from ages 3, when I start having them coding, it's pretty cool that they start doing the coding, but then I'm like, okay, but you're repeating this line, move forward, move forward, move forward. How about let's put this in a loop, or, move forward 5 times instead of putting that code down there. And then that's where you go into the algorithm design. So then you start creating the step-by-step to solving a problem. But once again, that doesn't have to do with programming itself, but I, like earlier too, I tried to point out, like they did, there's coding almost in everything we use, calculators, like they said, car, and it kind of blows the kids' minds. And it actually, for the younger kids, it gets them to start thinking, wow, I want to do this. But then as they start coding, they see all the steps. And I'm thinking, okay, you just coded this ball to bounce 3 steps forward. That was only a few lines of code. Now think about the games you go home and play. And yeah, so it gets them thinking about that, and I'm trying to think of us too. And then, like I say, we'll start talking about the unplugged coding. That's where we use for the younger kids, because it will take away because some kids are intimidated by coding, or they don't think they're into it. But once you get them going and they can relate that I could use this more than just typing in lines. Oh, wait, I could make this robot work. And then seeing that satisfaction, that's a really cool thing. So I was gonna say about the step-by-step. I love this slide, the computational thinkers. So then you have the concepts on the one side and how they approach it on the other. So they don't even realize when they start thinking about changing, or what would happen if I changed it. And those are good questions to ask kids and it's, like even working on a project or even like for an art teacher, when they're drawing something, it's like, well, okay, what if you use this color instead? And then to evaluate, nope, that didn't work good. It's okay. If it didn't work, then start over. So then you get into the creating part of it. And then the algorithm of doing the step-by-step, because like I tell them, you bake a cake, you can't stick it in the oven before you turn the oven on, can't put icing on it before you cook it. So it's important to do step-by-step. When you're taking a test, like I tell the older kids, you can't go to step 7 before you do 1 through 6, because you might miss something. And then I always use the college thing of people putting in there, if you don't read all the directions and follow them step by step. I had a professor that one time, halfway through the instructions, says, stop at question 5 and don't answer anymore. And then there's people sitting there for an hour doing the whole test because they didn't follow the steps. So they missed that. So debugging, that's one thing too. I try to teach kids, like, okay, it didn't work. Let's walk through, do a step at a time, a chunk at a time. That helps them if they're doing their reading, like saying a history report. They could start going through, reading it and go, no, this doesn't sound right. So that's how they start debugging it. And then, so that's looking for the pattern, and then persevering, keep going. That's one of the first things I tell them when I start introducing the coding part of our computer science class is, I know it could be frustrating, especially to a lot of people, but keep going, because when you get it to work, you'll be excited about it. And it is. And then all of a sudden they like doing coding, because they're like, okay, yeah, it took me 8 times, it took me 20 times to get this right, but look I got it to work. And so that was kind of neat to see that. And then also, I saw this through COVID, working together. So when our school switched to e-learning, it personally was amazing to see how each of them were working together and helping each other out. They couldn't have been taught that in the classroom. I mean, that was something, that life skill was awesome, because they were actually working together and helping, and they knew to reach out not only to the teachers, but to their classmates. So, and then like I say, we're all computational thinkers because our brains are wired that way. How can I make this better? What went wrong? I should have turned left instead of right, that type of thing. And then like I always tell them about MapQuest too. It tells you one way, but what happens if there's 465? The traffic's not moving. You got to think of plan B, plan C, that type of thing. All right. So these are some of for the younger kids of everyday computational thinking. Like you can't brush your teeth before putting toothpaste on. There is an algorithm of how to brush your teeth, playing a game, recipes. So like this would be like an unplugged activity to do with kids, is actually following a recipe as a class or in groups, especially if they're older. Today's weather, taking step by step of that, building a house, building blocks. You can't put the roof on before you build the foundation. And then a good one is surveys, because that teaches them how to do graphs and but you can't do the graph until you actually ask people the questions. You have to ask, and then first wait, before I ask people the questions, what am I asking them? It gets them to start thinking about the algorithm and the sequential order. I think there's one more, right?
Yeah, and what I just love about this is you can think about, in classroom settings or in different out of school time programs. These are some activities that you're probably doing. A lot of elementary classes, track weather, or maybe have experiences to do some cooking or follow a recipe. And so just thinking about these experiences and starting to sprinkle in that vocabulary, or saying, oh, we're working just like computers do. We have this, these algorithms to follow, so we get the outcome that we want. And just starting to kind of sprinkle that in to help build up that understanding of kind of what computational thinking is. And then that is how computers work, right? And it can kind of help set the stage for some of those other things that they're going to have a chance to do later.
Right. And one of the activities that I do with the kids in the computer room, in the computer lab, is I have them all stand up. And the objective is to make it to the door without running into anything. And it goes to show them that just because I give you directions, it did not work for every one of them. That only one person actually makes it to the door, because as soon as they hit something, they had to stop following the directions. And they were amazed. They're like, oh, so they know that, yes, you have to there's the debugging goes in. Oh, wait, this isn't for everybody. I need to put conditions in there and other steps in there to get everybody to the door. So that really, I love that.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, and then again, when we're thinking just about that unplugged approach, we just love the idea that it does help us address that problem that, who has access to what sorts of technology. Well, if you kind of take the technology out of it and no one's really, using it or using it for a while, then it just kind of levels that playing field and kind of helps everybody be able to attain these skills without having to jump right to the technology right away. Also is a great place for, teachers or youth workers that might not love working with technology, giving them some ideas of activities and things that they can still do that's in the realm of computer science, but it doesn't have to be plugged and using the electronic devices all the time. There's still, a wealth of different sorts of activities and things that they can be doing. And then that will help, skill up the staff or those that are working with the kids, and also help the kids. So it kind of works both ways from however you're kind of approaching it. And then I think what Kathy was talking about, just that unplugged approach, unplugged computational thinking, is kind of where we started. And then that can lead into, more complex unplugged experiences, and then eventually to those kind of plugged or the activities that you're doing with the devices. So again, just thinking about, as we move from just that computational thinking part to more so specifically to that programming and the coding part, there are still a lot of great activities that can be done in the unplugged way. And what's great is it's engaging for kids because, they can use different manipulatives or use different materials in different ways. We love it because we can even do it outside, right? These unplugged experiences can happen indoors or they can happen outdoors. That's one where they were working through an activity and decided to set it up and, make it a full body kinesthetic activity too, and following those instructions. So it can still be fun and engaging. It can, you can take these activities and differentiate them pretty easily. When you're working with younger kids to slightly older kids. So we liked this unplugged approach to teaching about technology and computer science too. So then we wanted to also take a minute and, like we said, share some activity ideas and some resources. So, as you're getting started, you can think about some of the things you're already doing and how you can just start to incorporate and be a little bit more intentional about the computer science or computational thinking components that could be involved. But maybe you want some new activity ideas. So we have, like I said, our library of STEM quick wins that you can find on our website. And there are 4 or 5 activities specifically designated as unplugged coding activities. And when you see these activities, there's an activity sheet that goes with it. And then there's a short video that also shows the activity in action. So you can kind of get a sense of what to expect, or the kids can kind of build some excitement about it. So that activity sheet, just a 1-pager with your materials, a little bit of background information, a career connection, literature links, and then your directions. So just real quick and easy. So hopefully, easy for teachers to use or out of school time programs to use without having to really get any very specific materials. Hopefully it's all things on hand. So we'd love to show you, take a couple of minutes to show you our Build a Robot activity with Tammy and Isabella.
Today's STEM quick win is called Build Your Own Robot. We'll be working in teams of 2 to practice our programming skills. Let's join a STEM kit and get started.
So I will be acting as the programmer, and I will be giving Tammy, who will be acting as the computer, an algorithm, which is a step-by-step process to build a robot. What's gonna look is the programmer is going to have a robot already set up, and then the computer is going to have a set of Legos to try to replicate the robot based off of the algorithm I give her. And you're going to have a sort of wall in the middle to make sure that the computer cannot see it. Computer, are you ready for your algorithm?
Yes, I am, programmer.
Okay. So the first step is to take your gray base. Then you're going to take 2 green 2x2 blocks. Corner, place one of your green 2x2s 2 rows in. And then in the top left corner, repeat that step. Then in the bottom right corner, you're going to take an orange 2x2 and do the same thing. In the bottom left corner, take a blue 2x2 and do the same thing. Next, you're going to take a flat green 2x4 and place it in the middle of your 2 green 2x2s. Then you're going to take a flat blue 2x4 and place it in the middle of your blue and orange 2x2s facing the center. Then you're going to take your black and gray spinning piece and place it in the center of the green and blue pieces. Then you're going to take a red 2x4 and place it on top of the spinning piece. And finally, you're going to take your Lego person and place it in the center of that red spinning piece.
Revealing time.
And if you notice that your computer was not able to replicate the robot, that is okay. You can do what most programmers do, which is called debugging. And it is where you go back and you look at the algorithm and you see where the error is.
Well, thanks for joining us for a STEM Quick Win. See you next time.
And so what I think is great there is there's just so many skills that the kids can be practicing while they're doing an activity like this. And this one in particular, just the communication skills, or, to thinking about those literacy skills and using descriptive words to really describe the pieces that they're working with. And it's really easy to differentiate. I think, you can just choose, fewer blocks to get started or bricks to get started to create something and then make it more complex. And I love that idea of then going back and debugging and kind of working through and problem solving kind of where was there an issue and how might we be able to fix that. So this is just one example of the activities that we have available, and there are 3 or 4 more that are in that kind of library of STEM Quick Wins. So if you're looking for a place to kind of start with some easy unplugged coding activities that don't require a lot of special materials or anything, it's a great place to kind of get started. I know, Kathy, you've used a couple of these unplugged coding activities through different experiences. Do you have any other thoughts to share on the?
Yeah, so especially the differentiate, taking important of the age, but they like drawing, like doing a maze, and then having one person be the computer and one person being the programmer, and the programmer having to walk around or giving the commands to the computer. Well, like in one of the pictures, it showed the outdoor one. You could take obstacles and you could spread them out, and then some of the kids can be they take turns being the programmer and the computer, and they learn, okay, we're doing the same thing, but wait, they gave me different commands. So they learn things, that it isn't, you can still get the same result, but in a different way. And they have fun doing it. But then they also learn, oh, wait, I said take 3 steps forward, but I didn't say small steps or big steps. And actually, as the computer, they have a hard time too sometimes following directions. So it's like, no, you can only do what the computer, but I need to go. No, you need to do what the computer said you're supposed to do. So that's a good skill too, is they have to learn how to do it. And there's some really good activities out there. And then like for the maze too, you could have them go outside with sidewalk chalk and draw it out there. You could do it in a classroom. You could put obstacles and have kids program or tell the computer how to walk around the desk to get these obstacles. So. Oh, another one is the binary bracelet that I saw a picture of. That's really cool because especially with the younger ones, they don't realize that the computer doesn't understand the letter A, B, C. It only works in ones and zeros. So it's a good introduction to how a computer translates when something is typed in through the keyboard to process it. So that's the binary one is a good one too, the bracelets. So Angela just put up the benefits of unplugging coding. This is really good, not only for the students, but also the adults that are working with the kids, because they may not have or be familiar with coding or be familiar with computers, or have a comfort working with computers and debugging, or if a kid is doing a code, how to help them debug it and how to fix their mistakes. So unplugged coding takes away some of that stress. And kids too can be intimidated by computers. They don't want to break it. Although nowadays they have so much exposure to technology. It's not like us when we were younger, but it's fun, it's memorable. It starts teaching them how to think in a sequential algorithm method. It also, like I tell them, you can't read the end of the book before some kids do, but you can't read the end before doing the beginning and the middle, because it kind of ruins it if you just read the end. And it also helps them, like I say, following a step of directions or just a sequential steps, because you can't do 2 until you do 1. And some kids try. And then it also helps allow youth, it develops their own ideas. It's like, okay, you had me do it this way, but I think we could do it better. So then let them try to do it their way and see if it works the same way. And like I say, I have 20 some kids in the classroom. I say, I have you all do code. I probably will get 20 some different ways that code, but I still will get the same result, because not everyone thinks the same way. And I said, that's a good thing, because that's how things are made. That's how things are designed. And that's a good way of thinking outside the box. And it builds great communication skills. So we talked about the hints for success. Implementing computer science in class as early as possible in the students, because they are exposed to it at such, like I say, I work with preschoolers. They know way more than I do about computers. Matter of fact, by the time they get to middle school. But I also stress to them, it's revolving. It changes constantly. And even my middle schoolers, I say, what you're learning now, so are the preschoolers. So when they get your age, they're going to be way ahead of you. And that's going to help in careers. It's going to give a lot of people a lot more opportunity to do things. The hour of code is awesome, because that gets them to code as a class, and they get the experiences of, let's say, I'm trying to think of, they like having fun, because I have seen in my class too, when they're coding and they're all kind of working on the same thing, if one gets through one of the lessons, I see the other kids going and helping the other kids get to that next point as well, to that next level. And that's cool. They do that in games. I know people say video games are bad, but it's also getting them to think, and how can I make this better? Actually, that gets them interested in maybe becoming a computer or a graphic designer. So there's a lot of benefits. So the earlier they start and the earlier they introduce and tie in that it's just not all about using a device, you do it without using a device as well too. Because I use Disney. They have so many, they have the graphic, they have the sound, that's all done on a computer. All those animated movies they make, there's so much technology and coding and computer science that goes in that. And then this is the best way to get to kids in introducing literature, reading books that tie in coding and unplugged coding. It gets them to start thinking, oh, I could do this. There's some really good books out there that cover it. Maybe if you want to, in the chat room, see if you've read any good books to your kids, that would be a great thing. But reaching out through literacy is one of the best ways. In STEM, we like to really tie any activity that we do with some type of literature, because it's really neat watching the kids connect. And then let's say add in the chat. And then we have one of our classrooms at the school that I'm at did an unplugged coding activity where they wrote down, and it's called Code a Dance. So they taught other kids step by step how to do their dance.
And we just have to see it because they're just so cute.
Yeah, they're adorable.
I just love it because you can see their instructions over here, so you know like what to expect. They might need a little debugging, but that's okay. But it's a fun process to think about, just, writing down those steps. They could code a handshake, they could do a little dance. Like this should just be really fun for a lot of different classes or groups of youth that you might be working with. I could see a lot of kids just really having fun with this. And again, really easy to differentiate because you could put in some criteria, some constraints, you could put in some different expectations and things and make it, more complex or less complex. And the kids are just having fun and they're not even, but they're getting that practice with those, step-by-step instructions. And that's exactly how computers work. So I love that. That's a great example of, the unplugged coding.
And I'd like to add to that in this example as well. The computer and the programmer forgot who's who at it sometimes. The computer started getting ahead of the programmer. So that's a good example. But they were having fun.
No, we don't need to watch it again. We're gonna move on. There we go. So like we said, we have some of those resources. That Code a Dance activity is actually one of our STEM Quick Win activities that you can find right there on that first resource with our STEM Quick Wins, along with the binary code bracelet. And then the Feed the Mouse game, kind of that maze game that Kathy was kind of talking about a little bit, are some other ones that are there. So those are some quick and easy ones. And we know that we don't have a ton of time with you today, but we definitely hope to help point you in the right direction and give you a little bit more information. So these are just some other great resources that we know that we have referenced and used to find unplugged activities specifically, but then some of them also kind of layer up and make their way to the plugged devices or those pieces of technology to help. So if you're just looking for activities and resources, this would be a great place to start. So we thought we would take a moment to share some of the resources we found so you can kind of continue and think about where you are and what sorts of things you might want to add in or learn a little bit more about. And then we also like to share our content resources, some of the quotes and some of the information and graphics and things that we found and shared with you today. If you want to dig a little deeper or want to learn more, here are a few of those resources that we used for some of that content. Again, thinking about some of the stakeholders you have and expressing why it's important to provide these sorts of opportunities. These could be some resources that you could share out to help you kind of show why you're spending time with computer science education, and then even the unplugged aspect of it. So we're just going to kind of wrap up and finish up. So as we're just kind of going through the last couple slides here and bringing things all together, feel free to add any questions or anything to the chat box. But we'd also love for you to take a moment and just think about some of the different things we've talked about today in terms of computational thinking, just computer science education, some of the unplugged opportunities that might exist, and what kind of stuck with you today? What might you be able to kind of take and use, or that you might want to think a little bit more about or learn a little bit more about? And as you're thinking, if you have one thought that kind of is just sticking with you for today, we'd love for you to take a moment and add that into the chat as you're thinking. And then just wanted to remind everyone viewing that those that are live, at the end of the webinar, you'll get the post-webinar survey that'll pop up. We love to hear your feedback and your thoughts about the webinar itself. But then if you would like to receive the PD certificate for your time today and the experience, please make sure you fill out that survey because it will give us your information to be sure to be able to share those PD certificates for you as this webinar series wraps up in the next month or so. So be sure to take a moment and fill that out, particularly if you want to be sure to get that PD certificate. So there's a couple different ways you should be able to access that survey. And then just a couple more things that are coming up from the STEM Connection. So if you're interested in connecting with us more, again, there's our STEM Quick Wins. That is free and available to anyone. Just hop on over to our website and you can kind of explore lots of different STEM activities that are available to you. We have one more webinar coming up next month for this kind of school year webinar series. And so we'll be thinking about those best practices for outdoor learning, especially as in some places like where we are, as the weather starts to warm up a little bit here in the next couple of months. How can we kind of take things outside and have meaningful learning experiences that happen outdoors? And then if you're local, we have some different opportunities that you may be able to connect with us and come out to our site or have us continue to connect with you. So thank you again. I'm going to go back just to this one in case anybody needs to get to that real quick as we finish up. Kathy and I will stay on for just another couple minutes, just in case anybody has any questions or any thoughts that you want to share. But otherwise, we want to be respectful of your time. So thank you so much for joining us, and please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions or want to connect on anything in a different way. So thank you for joining us. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we hope to connect with you again soon.